Okay, welcome everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Allison Swanson. I am an instructor with North Central Iowa Ag in the Classroom, and this is your classroom today. We are standing in the middle of a cornfield. As you can see, we've been working on harvesting this cornfield this afternoon. There's some that has already been harvested, and there's some corn that's still standing, and you're going to get to help us harvest that here this afternoon. I'm going to tell you a little bit about where we are. We are just over a couple miles into Boone County. If you can see those elevator towers behind me, that is the town of Boxholm, Iowa. So if you're not very familiar with southern Webster or northern Boone County, you can get out a map of Iowa and look up where the town of Boxholm is. And that is where we are farming today. So we are farming with my husband, Jeremy, and we farm in, like I said, we're kind of, we live in southern Webster County, but we farm in both Webster and Boone counties. And so I was showing you at the beginning, but I think you saw what the ride for today looked like. And so I'll just show you one more time. But we'll be riding along in this John Deere combine today in just a moment. Doesn't she look nice? And it's such a beautiful day to combine corn today. So right now I'm going to introduce our farmer to you. This is Jeremy Swanson. This is my husband, and he is the expert today. He's going to be telling you all about the combine, and he's going to tell you about corn and why we plant and harvest corn and what the corn is going to be used for and what's going to happen to this field after we finish harvesting here. So I'm going to hand the headset over to him and we're going to go get started. So thank you again for joining us today.
Well, hello, everyone. As Allison said, my name's Jeremy Swanson. I farm here in Webster and Boone counties. So we're combining corn today. So let's just dive into talking about this machine a little bit and tell you how it works. We're going to start up here on the front. So since we're combining corn, we have a corn head on this combine. There are different heads you can put on a combine. We put a different one on for beans. There are different crops growing around the country that take a different head yet, but all the crops can be run through the same machine. So on this corn head, what's going to happen is you're going to see each row of corn come down between each one of these green things and get right through here. And when it gets in here, there's rollers underneath the head that are going to pull the stalk down, and then the ear's going to pop off, and the ear's going to go up to that auger, and the auger's going to take it to the middle of the head, and then it's going to go back through the combine from there. We'll talk a little more about that when we get around the other side of the combine. One thing that's kind of unique on our machine, some people have them as well, but underneath the combine is these rollers that go all the way the full length of the head. And what those are designed to do is push all the corn stalks and leaves down tight to the ground for a couple reasons. One, those stalks, once they're cut off, are they're sharp daggers, and they can really chew up the tires on our combine and tractors. And so we like to try and get those pushed down flat to the ground and save our tires. The other thing it does is once all of that stalks and leaves are pressed tight against the ground, the biology in the soil, the bacteria and fungi start chewing on all that residue and break it down and get it incorporated back into the soil. And that will release a lot of nutrients for next year's crop. So that's why we like to get it down tight to the soil so the bugs in the soil can feed on it. All right, well, we're up front here. I want to point out one thing. Up on top of the cab, you see that yellow dome up there? That is a GPS antenna. And we'll talk about that more in the cab, but that does a lot of things for us in terms of being able to record data that we're collecting on the go and create maps and that sort of thing. But that's what that's a GPS antenna up there. As we move around to the side, as I said, this is a corn head. Now you got to bear with me because we've been combining today and this is really dirty. but from this point forward is the head. So we can set that off onto a trailer on the ground and put a different head on from there. So as the corn comes through the machine, it comes through what we call the throat or the feeder house. Then as we back around the side of the combine, all of that corn comes through this middle region, and this is where the bulk of the work gets done to separate the corn from the cob, which I'm going to show you a little bit on that in just a second. But it all happens very, very quickly where that corn gets shelled off the cob. The corn then goes up an elevator into the big tank on top of the combine. The cobs and any leaves that made it into the combine get separated out, and that stuff all gets thrown out the back end of the combine and spread out back on the ground. So once we get all that corn in the tank, this long tube that runs out the back of the combine, that tube is going to swing out next to the combine, and that's what allows us to transfer the corn from the tank over to our grain cart. Once the corn's on the grain cart, then it can take it up and put on the semi, and the semi will haul the corn to the elevator where we can sell it. So, as Allison said, we're driving a John Deere combine today. So the farm kids in the rooms that got red combines at home, sorry, you're going to have to deal with a green one today. All right, should we go for a ride? Let's do it. Before we take off, I forgot to show you this outside, but here's an ear of corn as it's attached to the plant. And so the combine's going to take and separate back these husks, is what they're called, to expose the ear. And then the combine will start twisting and shelling to get kernels to pop off, leaving just the cob behind. There's a little bit at the end that you can see that the kernels didn't form out there. Okay. All right, a couple things in the cab here before we get going. There's a lot of technology in combines today. And so there's actually two different, essentially, computers that we use. This bigger one up here, what this does is there's sensors on the combine that are tracking how much corn is going through the combine at any point in time. And then since it's tied to that GPS antenna on top of the cab, it can make a map as we're going across the field to help us figure out where we're growing more corn and where we're growing less corn. And then we can take all of that data off of this computer and put on my computer in my office and be able to start dissecting what went well, what didn't go well, and how can we make changes for next year to be better. There's a couple of safety things here. We have a couple cameras on our combine as well. This camera here is actually looking into the grain tank behind us. That's where the corn will start filling up. This helps us be able to see how full we're getting in the tank. I also have a camera out the back of the combine to be able to see if we're backing up or when we're driving down the road, if somebody comes up behind us, we know there's a car there. This computer down here, the smaller one, is connected to a different set of sensors on the combine. And this is what helps us set the combine in terms of how well it's separating the corn from the cobs and how well it's doing at blowing just the cobs and the leaves out the back and making sure we aren't throwing corn out the back. This also helps us, we don't use it so much in corn. In soybeans we do though, but the combine has the ability to drive itself. connected to that yellow GPS globe on the cab, it can actually drive perfectly straight on its own without me touching the steering wheel. So that's kind of cool. All right, I think let's get it fired up and do some combining. Again, if you guys got questions, throw them into the chat and Allison will throw them at me as we can. All right, here we go. Ooh, gotta let the dust get out of the way. So how fast does the combine go? Today we're running about 4 to 4.5 miles per hour. Sometimes we've run as fast as 5.5 miles per hour. It all kind of depends on how good the corn is, how dry it is, how good the stalks are standing, those kinds of things. But today we're going to run between 4 and 4.5. How fast can the combine go on the highway? This machine goes about 17 miles per hour. So not very fast. So we started planning for this corn crop about this time last year. We started making decisions about how many nutrients to put out in the field to feed this crop. So the soil can provide a lot of the nutrients that these plants need, but it doesn't necessarily able to supply them all. Kind of like you and me as we eat, even with a well-balanced diet, even if we eat all our fruits and vegetables, sometimes we still need to take a multivitamin. And the soil and these corn plants are very much the same way. Sometimes we need to give them a few extra vitamins. So we start making those decisions about now. And then in the spring, well, through the winter, we'll work on purchasing the seed that we're going to plant and the chemicals we'll use to control the weeds. And then in the spring, we'll plant. And usually we start sometime in the middle of April, and hopefully we're done by around the 1st of May. Sometimes, depending on the weather, if it's a wet spring, maybe we don't get done to till the middle of May. This year, I think most of our corn was planted right around the 1st of May, give or take a week. And then through the summer, we'll make a pass with the sprayer to control the weeds. And then we'll make a pass with the sprayer, usually sometime in July, to maybe put on some more nutrients, some more vitamins if the plant is telling us it needs them. Or maybe we'll put on a fungicide to control some disease, or maybe an insecticide if we have insects attacking our crops. So we make those decisions at that time, whether disease is present, whether the plants might be getting sick, whether there's some bugs trying to feed on them, or whether they need some more food. And then we may make a pass at that time frame. This year, there was a lot of disease in the corn, and it's really hurt our yields quite a bit. And we did spray for the diseases, but they just kept coming, and they hurt our crops quite a bit this year. The question is, how tall is the combine? And I don't know if I know the answer to that for sure, but I'm going to guess it's maybe somewhere around 15 feet tall. I'm probably pretty close there. How many bushels of corn can the combine hold? So I believe it's around 350 bushels. And to give you an idea, a bushel of corn is about 1 to 2 5-gallon buckets. How long does it take to finish a whole field? I think we can combine at about, I want to say it's about 9 acres an hour. And today we're in an 80-acre field. So I'll let you guys do the math afterwards as to how long it's going to take us to combine this field. How much does a combine weigh? I think this one weighs around 25 or 26,000 pounds, I think. So it's pretty heavy. This combine, as you can count here, we're taking 8 rows of corn at a time. I remember when I was a kid, the combine we had at that time only took 4 rows at a time. And I remember when Dad bought us a 6-row corn head, we thought we were really getting big because we were taking 6 rows. And now today we're taking 8 rows, and there's quite a few farmers who have 12-row heads, and a few farmers that have 16-row heads. That's a lot of corn coming in all at one time. So where's this crop going to go? So we're hauling to our local elevator, and from there it's kind of at the elevator's discretion where they sell the corn to. But generally speaking, in this area, most of the corn around here is either going to go to a feed mill to be made into hog or cattle feed, maybe some chicken feed or something like that. But that's where a lot of it's going to go. A lot of it will go to ethanol plants to be made into fuel that can be put in your cars. It is possible that some of it may get put on a train and shipped to Mexico. It is also possible that some of it could be trucked over to the Mississippi River and put on a barge and hauled down the Mississippi River and put on a ship and transferred anywhere around the world. One question that I know comes up sometimes is how big is an acre? So I mentioned we're in an 80-acre field today. 1 acre is roughly the size of a football field. So we're going to combine 80 football fields worth of corn today. What's the most important part of the combine? Ooh, I don't know that there is, because it's all got to work together. For example, last week, our unloading auger broke. And so we could combine corn. We could put corn in the front of it through the head. We could separate the corn into the tank and throw the ears or the cobs and the leaves out the back end, but we had no way to unload it. So we still couldn't combine corn. So each part has a very, very important part to it. What is the most frustrating part of harvesting? Breakdowns. When stuff breaks on the combine or the tractor, the grain cart, the semi, whatever it is, breakdowns take time to fix. Sometimes they're pretty expensive, and it keeps us from getting our harvesting done. How much is corn selling per bushel? Right now, I think it's around $3.80 per bushel, depending on where you sell it to. You have to clean the combine. We don't have to. When we're done for the year, we do try to get as much of the dirt and leaves and things off of it as we can, just to keep, just because we like to do that, just to have it cleaned up good. But it is not required. It takes a long time to clean a combine up, and is a really dirty, nasty job. If any of you would like to come help, well, I will let you. How much does a combine cost? Well, obviously that depends on whether it's a new combine or a used combine. But I think some of the new combines today are going to cost around $1 million and maybe a little more. There are some really nice used combines on the market for maybe 150 or 200,000, something like that. So they can become considerably more reasonable, although that is still a lot of money. What would we do if the corn is wet? So this corn today is really dry. So we don't need to worry about drying it. But if the corn were wet, the elevator that we're hauling it to will dry it for us down to the moisture that they want it at. And then they charge us for it. Sometimes we have some grain bins on our farm that we can put the corn right in the grain bin and dry it ourselves. If it were raining, could we harvest? Well, no. If a real light rain, sometimes we can go through a light rain for a little while, but once the leaves start getting wet, it makes it harder for the combine to separate the corn from things. And the bigger things that happens is once the ground starts getting muddy, it gets hard to get the semis in the field to be able to haul the corn out of the field. So once it starts raining, usually we have to quit until the ground dries up. How tall is the corn? Oh, probably in that 10 to 12 foot range. There's different kinds of corn, and some corn grows a little taller than others, kind of like all of us. Some of us are taller than others, some of us are shorter than others. Neither is good or bad, it's just the difference in the different kinds of corn. How many rows of corn are in an acre? Well, I don't know the answer to that specifically, but trying to think how to help you figure that out. There's 2.5 feet between each row. And an acre's probably maybe 200 feet wide by maybe 600 feet long, something like that, maybe. Ooh, that's a hard question. I don't know the answer to that one. That'd take a little math to figure that one out. Okay. Does the corn ever smell bad? Not usually coming out of the field. Sometimes if we put it in the grain bin and maybe it doesn't get dried properly, or we don't, we don't manage it properly in the bin, or if it's got a disease or something, the corn can go bad. And when it does go bad, it does smell. It stinks really bad. How big are the tires on the combine? I think they're probably about 6 foot tall, probably. How much corn can be held in the grain tank? I can hold about 350 bushels in the grain tank at the combine, and on the grain cart, I can hold about 1,000 bushels on the grain cart, and this semi holds about 1,000 as well. What do I like to harvest more, corn or soybeans? I like to harvest corn more. Reason why? In corn, we're usually, let's just say we're running around 200 bushels per acre. In soybeans, we're running around 60 bushels per acre. So corn is a lot faster paced than soybeans is. And so that makes it a lot more exciting. Great questions. Appreciate all your questions. How long have I been farming? Well, I've been riding in the cab of a tractor since I was a little kid. We just joked the other day that the tractor we had when I was a kid had a little space behind the driver's seat, and I would sit in the back and play with my toy tractors back there. But I did rent my first farm, I believe, in 2006. So that's probably technically the answer of when I started farming. Do you ever let your wife run the combine? Do I ever let my wife run the combine? I am willing to let my wife run the combine. I'm not sure she wants to run the combine. Where do we take the combine when it breaks down? So we have a John Deere dealer just northwest of us in Harcourt, and that's where we take ours. That's the closest dealer to us, and they have people there that can work on it and provide parts for us, which is probably one of the big reasons why we have a John Deere combine, because it is the closest dealer of any color combine, case, cloths, anything to us. So that's kind of why we have a John Deere. How old was I when I learned how to drive a tractor combine? I learned how to drive tractor first. Mom's requirement for me to be able to drive was that my legs had to be long enough to reach the clutch. And so I'm guessing I was probably somewhere around 10 years old, maybe 11 years old when I drove that. And I don't know, I suppose I was probably in high school when Dad started letting me drive the combine. Do I like farming? Yes, I like farming. Farming is very challenging. There's a lot of different aspects to it, from having to be a mechanic at times to having to be a banker at times, an accountant at times, an agronomist at times to know how much fertilizer to put out and how to make the plants happy. There's just so many different aspects of it, and trying to juggle all those and be good at them to be successful is a fun challenge to me. How old is this combine? I believe this is a 2012 or 2013, something like that. Yeah, so what's going to happen with this field once we get all the corn harvested off of it? Actually, this field's going to set just as it is until we plant it in the spring. We practice what we call no-till or no tillage. So we will not do any tillage to this and just plant right into these corn stalks in the spring. when planting soybeans into corn stalks, soybeans will kind of grow about anywhere. And so by leaving all the corn stalks on top, it kind of protects the soil, keeps the wind from blowing it away through the winter, water and snow melting from washing it to where places we don't want it. So we like to just leave the stalks there and protect the soil. Also, it saves us a lot of money not having to do tillage. Tillage is very expensive and uses a lot of fuel. But there's a lot of people that do tillage in this area, and historically there's been good yields from that, and there's a lot of very good reasons for doing tillage, but we have chosen to do no-till. What's the hardest challenge I've had to face since I've started farming? Oh boy. There's been a few. Probably just dealing with the stress of not being able to control how many bushels I produce. I can do all the things right, give all the right nutrients, keep the diseases out, but things like how much sunlight we get, how much rain we get, how much heat we get through the summer, all of those things are completely out of my control as to how that's going to affect these plants and whether or not we're going to be successful from year to year. So that is dealing with the stress of that's probably the hardest thing. So with that, I think we're running out of time here. So appreciate you guys riding along with me in the combine today. Hope you enjoyed your ride, and we'll talk to you later.
Hey, thanks everyone for joining us today, and special thanks to my husband Jeremy for taking time out of his day to do this farm chat for us. So once again, thank you for joining us, and I hope you learned something, and have a good rest of your afternoon. Bye from the Swansons.